filming YouTube videos in this particular corner of my apartment. I've gotten a lot of comments and questions about what I'm sitting in front of. Some of you love the fact that my bookshelf is color-coded, and some of you want to know what's actually on it and what I'm reading. Today I want to share 11 books that I think you should read if you're a content creator growing your online business. I love sharing what I've learned with you in my almost 12 years as a content creator, so I thought it would be fun to share some of the people who I've learned from as well. From inspiring founder stories to more instructional books with actionable advice, there really is something for every type of content creator on this list. Before we dive in, if you're interested in learning more content creation business strategies, I wanted to share that I'm going to be hosting a free webinar for content creators in the coming weeks. This webinar is all about building passive income streams, so we're talking about working smarter, not harder in 2024. So if you're interested, please check out the link down below to learn more and secure your spot. I've broken these 11 books out into different categories, so let's go ahead and kick things off with some business strategy books. If you only read one book on this list, Make It Influencer by Brittany Hennessy. If you don't know Brittany, she is one of the leaders in the influencer education space, in my opinion. She got her start at Hearst Magazines, where she was the senior director of influencer strategy and talent partnerships. So I love that we both kind of worked in the editorial world at one point. So her book is Influencer, Building Your Personal Brand in the Age of Social Media, the Blueprint to Manage and Monetize Your Influence as a Content Creator. Now, this book came out in 2018. I believe I read it very early in 2019. So in my 7th year as a content creator, and I still learned so much from this book. I feel like it really is just filled with lots of little nuggets that you feel like you want to start highlighting or taking notes or something to be like, oh yeah, I've never thought of that before, or I should be doing this in my business. One big thing that changed for me in my business after reading this book was that I added a partnerships page to my blog, which Brittany suggests that you do, where I was able to show examples of previous partnerships and tell brands more about how they could work with me. So that's over on my blog, and that's just one of many good nuggets in this book. It really is the blueprint. I'll let you read the book for the rest of the nuggets, but in the meantime, also go follow Brittany on Instagram, where she is always sharing more tips for influencers and content creators. Next up, I have a book called 3 Months to Number One. For all of my long-form content lovers out there, this is basically the SEO Bible, the no-nonsense SEO playbook for getting your website found on Google by Will Coombe. So this book does focus on how to get a blog or website to rank in the #1 spot on Google search, which if you've ever had that happen on your blog or website, you know what a game changer it can be for your business. I would say some of the strategies can also apply to YouTube. Google owns YouTube, as we've discussed here on this channel and in other videos about SEO, but I also want to shout out, this book is funny. Like, the author is actually very funny, and this is an engaging read. So much SEO advice is clinical and dull and very just by the book, and this added like a dash of humor in it that made me pay more attention to what was actually being taught. I think at one point he even says, like, if you just skimmed over that last paragraph, please go reread it because it's actually important. So the self-awareness is there, and I just think he also goes so into detail about not just on-page SEO, which I feel like is the primary thing that's discussed online these days, but also site structure, how to make sure your website is set up properly, everything else like internal links. So it's very detailed, and if having a blog that is ranking high on Google is important to you, you should definitely pick this book up. Next up on my list is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. So this is actually Andrew's book, but he let me borrow it right after I quit my job at Jump Rope. Obviously it has a catchy title, but I'd heard a lot of good things about this as a business book. It says the 4-hour work week, escape the 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new RIT. So some of the highlights of this book, it's all about, again, kind of working smarter, not harder. I feel like that's the theme of these first 3 books for sure. So how Tim went from $40,000 a year and 80 hours a week to $40,000 a month and 4 hours a week. So that's very intriguing, obviously. There's basically a lot of tips for streamlining and outsourcing in here. Even if you don't feel like you're ready to outsource yet, he talks about a lot of affordable and effective ways to start to delegate your work to other people to free up your plate. I think the thing that stood out to me the most about this book is something called the 80-20 principle, which he talks about more in the book, but overall kind of asking yourself the question, like, what 20% of sources are contributing to 80% of my stress, and just finding ways to eliminate those things so that you can be less stressed, more happy, and focus on what actually is the big picture. To give you a creator example, maybe you feel like you're supposed to be posting on TikTok once a week, but every time you go to sit down, you feel stressed, you worry about the comments section, and you're just generally hating your life. Just don't worry about posting to TikTok right now then. It's okay, you're on other platforms, don't worry about it, and that will immediately alleviate stress and give you time back to focus on the platforms that you do like creating for. So if you're looking to streamline and simplify in 2024, this would be a great one to add to your list. Let's move on to a few books about mindset and productivity. First up, I have You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. The best way I can sum this one up is it's pretty much a pep talk in a book to reframe your mindset. If you're feeling imposter syndrome and you're hoping to overcome it, you feel like you recently experienced a failure and you just can't seem to shake that feeling, this is such a good one to read. If you've ever heard that saying, the story that you tell yourself is the story you believe, I feel like that's a pretty big theme of this book. The way that you talk to yourself, the way that you refer to yourself, that is then what the truth becomes if that's the case. Maybe one example of this is if you say, oh yeah, I've just got like a little Instagram account, like I just take pictures and I just upload them, it's no big deal, versus saying, I'm a full-time content creator and Instagram is my primary posting platform. Like, those two things are very different, and that is a big part of what I feel like Jen helps readers kind of get to in her book. If you feel like you ever fall into a comparison trap, or you just have imposter syndrome, or you feel like you can't really block out the noise, the strategies in this book will help you accomplish all of those things and more. I will say the tone of this book is a little bit blunt. It's got a bit of a tough love to it, but if you are in the market for that and if you love it, I think she also actually wrote another book more about money mindset. So this and then that book could be great ones to add to your TBR list for 2024. Moving on to one of my favorites, this is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Tiny changes, remarkable results, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break old ones. I love this as a start of the year book. I read it last year in 2023, and I was kind of just starting to sit down and think about what are the habits, like the small things that I actually want to incorporate into my life, be better about, be more consistent with. And again, reading this at the start of the year was great because I feel like I had a good idea of what I wanted to do in 2023, and it was just a matter of crossing from I know what I want to do to, okay, here I am actually doing it. So this book is great to kind of unlock some of those mental blocks that could be holding you back, because it really does show you how to break things down and make things more manageable for you and what makes sense for you and your lifestyle. A couple of things that I wanted to build as habits last year that are now pretty much seamlessly incorporated into my life a year later were doing consistent workouts on my Peloton and learning Spanish again on Duolingo and taking my vitamins every day because I am an adult and getting older and I want to maintain my health as much as I can. And yes, I take the gummy ones because I hate swallowing pills. But anyway, one thing in this book that helped me start to accomplish some of those habits was the discussion about habit stacking. So making things that you want to do easier by kind of clumping them in with stuff that you instinctively already do. For example, every day I wake up. So if I stack the habit of changing into my workout clothes immediately after waking up, it makes it much easier to walk out and then get on the Peloton because I did the first step, which was to get dressed to work out. And similarly with my vitamins, I now have them right next to the sink. So as I'm rinsing my dishes after eating lunch, they are literally right in front of me. And it's so hard to forget them when they're there. And I take them at the same time every single day. So it really is these tiny changes that can add up to help you create days and weeks and months that you're enjoying more. I know I just named a bunch of personal ones, but I find that they help me just be a better person so that when I do sit down to work, that that I'm in a good place. And you can absolutely apply these to work as well. I think I've tried to do that with finding times for when I answer emails versus my schedule uploading and so much more. So this is a really good one. This next one is for the girls out there, and it is Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap. So this is Financial Feminist, Overcome the Patriarchy's BS to Master Your Money and Build a Life You Love. Now, not to get too soapboxy here, but I wish that personal finance was taught in school. I feel like that is kind of the big thing that I felt underprepared in for life. I'm very lucky that I had parents who taught me about finance and that I had resources available to me to help me feel pretty good about my finances and hopefully set up for success with things like retirement, etc. later on. But so much of finance is actually still a mystery, and that's why this I'm putting in the mindset category, because just as much as you want to do the practical things like open a savings account, have a rainy day fund, be saving for retirement, half of it is all just the way you think about it and how you prioritize money and what money means to you, because money means totally different things for everybody. So not only does this book cover pretty much all of the basics of personal finance, like explaining how loans work, what type of savings account you can open, but I feel like it also addresses some of the systemic things that have historically worked against women, and more specifically even women of color, to kind of oppress us and keep us behind in some cases when it does come to money. Access to information like this is key to help more women build wealth over time. Maybe you've heard money advice before, like, well, if you would stop buying your lattes and avocado toast, then you'd have enough money for a house, Sally. And it's like, you know, what I like about this is Tori asks actual questions, and you can even go in and write your answers directly in the book to help you figure out what your money priorities actually are. What purchases make you feel good? What purchases make you feel horrible and like you shouldn't have clicked on that TikTok ad? And for some people, that's going to be buying a latte. Maybe not every single day, but maybe once or twice a week to kick off the week on a good note and get them in a good mood because they hate making their own coffee, or they want to go to the one that's on the way to the office. So that being said, this is not a book that you can just kind of breeze through, like don't be drinking a margarita on the beach when reading this one. But if you do actually sit down and do the work, I mean, I felt amazing after doing that. So that is my recommendation for this one. Let's move along to the next category, which I'm going to call first person founder stories. So this is the president or CEO of a company who is writing a book reflecting on their experience building their company. And we're going to kick it off with a book that I actually just finished 2 weeks ago that Andrew lent me, called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Can you guess what company Phil Knight founded just from this iconic logo? Andrew's been telling me to read this for a while, and I should have listened to him sooner because I really enjoyed this one. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed most about it is if you think about what Nike is today and you start reading this book, it's kind of crazy. Like there's a huge disconnect. And as you're reading the first couple of chapters of this book, it's like, how did this turn into Nike? Like, this is crazy, just how it started out, how much they had to go through, all of the legal battles and struggles and all of these different things, working with different companies, factories, changes in personnel within the company, all to get to where they are today. The difference even between Nike in the late 70s, early 80s to Nike now is staggering. And this is a reminder that building a hugely successful business is going to take a lot of trial and error. There's going to be many ups and downs over the years. You're going to make a lot of mistakes and have an imperfect journey to get to where you ultimately end up. And there were a lot of points in this where I kind of found myself wondering, like, how the heck are they going to get out of this? Like, are they going to make it through? And obviously I know the answer because the spoiler alert is the hugely recognizable international logo. But that's what I also appreciated about Phil Knight's writing, is his storytelling is great. And that's not always the case with a book like this, but I really thought he was a great writer as well. And there were some moments where he says, I wish I was recording those early meetings so I can tell you exactly what was said, or I can't remember the conversations from all those late nights, which makes all of the things that he does remember and all of the more direct quotes that he includes much more powerful to me. So that to me is kind of the mark of a great writer. My one sentence pitch for this, honestly, is it's a very candid look at how Nike became what we know it as today. Next up, we have Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, and he was the president of Pixar Animation, as I'm sure you can tell from the silhouette of Buzz Lightyear here, and later on Disney Animation. First of all, this book is great for any Pixar fans because he kind of goes through in chronological order and talks about the development of the Pixar movies. So I believe Toy Story was the first one, followed by A Bug's Life, then we get Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo. So you do get a behind-the-scenes look at kind of how those ideas were pitched, the challenges with actually animating them, especially as animation technology was still kind of up and coming, and Pixar really were the leaders in that space. So you get to see the early days and how these beginning films were really progressing, and then you get to 2006, where Disney acquires Pixar, and I really appreciated the candid look at how that acquisition presented new challenges for the company and how he worked to create systems to keep that kind of startup energy alive, even within a huge corporation like Disney. So if you're interested in building a mega brand like this in the future and want to look into what being acquired by a huge company could even look like, or honestly, if you're just interested in a really cool story and the inner workings of something that now is so massive. I mean, animated films, especially for kids, are just absolutely huge these days. It's a really interesting look at, I feel like, a content creation process that we don't necessarily understand as well. We who create just photo and video. Animation is a whole other world, but I found it really fascinating. Next on my list is Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso. Now, the phrase girl boss has gone through kind of an interesting evolution in the last decade. So this book actually came out in 2014, which means it came out 10 years ago, which is making me feel so old. But I just remember picking up this book and being so excited. I'm wanting to be a girl boss myself so badly. So Sophia is the founder and CEO of Nasty Gal. The website still exists today, but it's gone through kind of a lot of different changes and things over the years. Whether or not you agree with the term girl boss these days, I would just say don't let it deter you from reading this book, because Sophia really is a super smart entrepreneur and she has a great founder story that I personally loved. I don't know how much the Netflix adaptation of Girl Boss did it justice, even though I did watch it at the time. Obviously, anything fashion, check. Anything entrepreneurial, check. I was all over that, especially as a teenager. This is another one kind of similar to Nike, where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe where you started versus where you are now. She really started out with posting vintage pieces on eBay, but anyone could take a photo of something and upload it to eBay, but she really thought about the styling. She made the images marketable, and as a result, she started selling so much more than other Etsy sellers. And that thinking ahead, how can I stand out? How can I be different? How can I make this interesting for someone? That is an entrepreneur at heart. So I really loved the story of the beginning stages of Nasty Gal. And I'll also add, if you're someone who identifies more as an introvert and, started content creation because you wanted to work for yourself and you don't like necessarily being in the front of a meeting room or a boardroom or assigning tasks out to other people, this is a great look at a CEO who kind of hated all of that, but did it anyway in service of her brand and her company. And next category, we talked about some first-person founder stories. So now I have two books I want to recommend that are basically stories about founders. The first one that I'm going to recommend to you is No Filter. This is by Sarah Fryer, who is a reporter at Bloomberg News. She is a tech reporter, and she has been covering Instagram for, years and years. So she really is probably one of the foremost experts in Instagram and honestly the perfect person to write this book. So it really is a very detailed account of the creation of one of the most important social media apps today. Obviously, you can tell from the gradient, Instagram. So it follows Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger from when they invented Instagram, how they first came up with it, all the way through to Twitter offering to buy Instagram and then Facebook offering to buy Instagram. We all know who won out there. Facebook buying Instagram for $1 billion in 2012. Instagram launched in 2010. It is honestly so crazy. And I think people forget how early that happened. Like that was within maybe a year and a half of the launch. I know they launched October 6th, 2010, and I believe the sale went through in April of 2012. That is so fast. And I think all the time, you know, what would Instagram be like if it was an independent company? What would it be like if Facebook hadn't purchased it? It's just not a rabbit hole we have the time or the mental bandwidth to go down. So we have what we have. Facebook bought Instagram, and from there you can also really start to see how things were kind of shifting within the company, the power dynamics between Facebook and Instagram all under one roof, and basically how Instagram came to be what it was today, and all the way up through the point where the founders decided to exit. So if you're kind of just interested in like the history of the whole thing and you want to kind of get in on the gossip and the nitty-gritty, definitely pick this one up. I also have a release that came out last year that I just read last month, so very fresh in my mind. This is Glossy, all about Emily Weiss, the founder of Glossier, and it's written by Marissa Meltzer, who is a beauty, wellness, all things lifestyle journalist. She has written for huge publications and has interviewed Emily many times over the years. I mean, this one was fascinating for me because I watched Emily Weiss's rise in real time. I saw her on the Hills when I was in middle school when she was super intern Emily. I remember when Into the Gloss launched when I was a junior in high school. I remember going to college in New York City and one of my friends told me she got an internship at a new beauty brand that was going to be an offshoot of Into the Gloss called Glossier. There's a whole section on my blog dedicated to Glossier. I feel like I've been there for a lot of this, just kind of as a follower and viewer. So this was a much more like very chronologically laid out look at exactly how everything happened. And I feel like it definitely helped me, even as someone who felt like they knew a lot, connect a lot of dots along the way about who this hired into the Gloss was, what happened after she had this meeting, what happened after she talked to this person, you know, all of the things over the years. And what I liked about this is it was very kind of like in the middle where I feel like the reader gets to decide, you know, how do you feel about Emily? How do you feel about Glossier after reading it? There are a lot of moments that highlight how brilliant Emily is as a founder and CEO. And there are a lot of moments that highlight maybe some of her struggles or things that people think she could improve on or decisions she made that didn't quite make sense. So I feel like it was a pretty well-rounded look at the whole thing. And no matter where you kind of stand or what side you end up on, it's still a really interesting read. I think the one thing that was maybe missing for me, and this is just because there's not an answer to it yet, is like what's going to happen with Glossier. They received a Series E funding. So the A, B, C, D, E. A lot of people stop at B and go to an IPO. Some people get acquired. They're still an independent company. They have Series E valued at $1.8 billion last I checked. So I have no idea where they're headed next or what's going to happen to the brand, but I will still be watching and be looking to see where they end up. So all of those books I have personally read and recommend, but I wanted to do a few rapid fire at the end of what I am planning to read this year. So let's kick things off with Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. Marie Forleo is an entrepreneur, speaker, digital course creator. I'm pretty sure I first heard her on Amy Porterfield's podcast, and I was just super interested in this book. I love the title. I love that she is someone who just throughout her whole career had to keep kind of figuring things out. And so I'm really excited for this one. Another one is Swipe Up for More. I actually asked Andrew to get me Everything is Figure Outable and this for Christmas, so I just got these in. I'm very excited to read them. So Stephanie is a creator economy reporter. I first discovered her when she was working for BuzzFeed News. She is now at Glamour. And Swipe Up for More, I think this is interesting to me because the description of this book talks about how she follows 3 mega influencers for 3 years. So apparently it's supposed to be unprecedented access to these influencers. One of them is Caitlin Covington, who you may know from memes and articles about Christian Girl Autumn. Basically, Caitlin lives in North Carolina, but she takes a Vermont trip at the beginning of fall every year, and her Instagram is just I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's peak basic fall girl, and everyone loves it. It's all like beautiful, picturesque, white picket fences, yellow trees, over the knee boots. Like, it's a whole thing. So anyway, she is one of the influencers. I actually am not familiar with the other 2 who are followed in this book, but I thought that was a more interesting and kind of different approach other than just writing a straight on like influencer industry book. And I love Stephanie's writing, so I'm excited for that. Another one is On Brand by Eliza Licht. So I actually read her first book, Leave Your Mark, back when I think I might have been in high school. I think that's when it came out. Yes, it came out in 2015. So Eliza is an author and a publicist. In her first book, she talked about working for Donna Karan New York when she was first starting out in PR. She had a Twitter handle called DKNY PR Girl, and she would kind of anonymously tweet about like things going on at the brand. It was like perfect timing. It was so smart. It was in the age of Gossip Girl. So Leave Your Mark is, I would say, probably geared towards like a bit of a younger audience. If any of you young whippersnappers out there are like at the end of high school or beginning of college and looking for some career advice, that could be a good one. Although I don't know how much the social media advice would be applicable since it came out, almost 10 years ago. This is like, I'm just now having the realization that this is 2024, which means next year it's 2025. And like so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm super interested in this one. I actually started it in 2023 and had to stop because, similar to Financial Feminist, there are places within the book for you to fill things in, answer questions about your brand, how you want to be seen, and so on. And I was just trying to read something by the pool, so this was not really a good fit for just that time, but I definitely am excited to jump into it this year. And the last one that I have not purchased yet, but I definitely want to read this year is Extremely Online by Taylor Lorenz. I'll make sure there's a photo of it up on the screen. So Taylor is probably one of my favorite creator economy reporters. She has previously worked for The Atlantic, The New York Times, and is now a reporter at Washington Post. It's described as the history of influencers, but through a very sociological lens. Sociological? So talking more about the impact of influencers within the greater world, and particularly how the creator economy has kind of been the first major disruption to modern capitalism in the last several years. I think that is extremely interesting that we have gone so far as to create almost a whole new economy within the existing economy. At least I assume the book is primarily about content creators in the US, so might not be as interesting if you are living internationally, but maybe you're interested in it all the same. I hope you loved this list and found some great books to add to your to-be-read list for 2024. And one more quick reminder, don't forget to sign up for my webinar in the coming weeks all about how to build passive income streams as a content creator. I promise you're going to love it, and I am so excited to see so many of you there live. Please don't forget to subscribe if you have not already. We're getting so close to 20K. I can't believe it. It's been a long time coming. And if after watching this video, you're still in that literary mood, go check out my video with 6 storytelling tips for content creators. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.